Have you ever noticed how some people possess an almost supernatural control over their environment? They don't shout, they don't beg. They simply withdraw without saying a word, and suddenly everything changes. The energy shifts. People start questioning, chasing, feeling something. Now imagine if you did the same. What would happen if you stopped reacting to everything immediately, if you chose silence instead of automatic responses, withdrawal instead of explosion? Here's where the truth lies. When you stop being available emotionally, physically, psychologically, the world around you enters a crisis. Because people have become accustomed to controlling you through your reactions, your impulses, your predictability. But the day you choose to withdraw, the game changes. And those who thought they knew you realize they actually know nothing about you at all. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Now think about this. When you become unreachable, who's really the one left desperate? Who gets angry? Who tries to provoke you just to extract a tiny crumb of emotion from you? This situation reveals far more about the other person than it does about you. And most importantly, it exposes how manipulated you've been without even realizing it. You're trying to please, to keep the peace, to not lose people who were never truly with you in the first place. And with every forced yes, every instant response, every emotional reaction, you're giving away a piece of your energy. What's left at the end of the day? Exhaustion, disappointment, an emptiness you can't explain. But let me tell you why. It's because you're being too available for people who don't deserve even a minute of your silence. This video isn't about turning your back on the world. It's about choosing yourself, learning what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, authentic, complete. And that process begins when you understand that silence can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments. Withdrawal, when it comes from awareness and isn't an escape, is an immense act of power. So now I'm looking into your eyes and asking, how much longer will you continue to be controlled by other people's emotions? How much longer will you react like a puppet when someone touches your wound? Perhaps it's time to cut those strings, to withdraw, and to become a mystery. Because when you stop being available, everything changes. You were taught to always be available, to say please, to respond immediately, to say yes even when you want to say no. Since childhood, you've been conditioned to believe that your worth lies in how available you are to others. But there's a truth that perhaps no one has told you this clearly. This excessive availability isn't a virtue. It's a prison. And as long as you continue to think you need to be reachable at all times, emotionally or otherwise, you'll be manipulated, you'll be depleted, and you'll be forgotten the moment you're no longer useful. Why? Because always being available makes you predictable, and everything predictable becomes a tool. People start using you like an emotional emergency button. When they need attention, comfort, validation, they press it, and then they put you back on the shelf. But you don't notice this, because you're trapped in the illusion that being available to everyone will one day make someone available for you. But that's not how it works. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, that mask we were to be accepted, loved, recognized. And it's precisely this mask that makes you overly accessible. You say it's fine even when you're drowning. You respond to messages instantly even when you're exhausted. You explain yourself. You try to justify. You defend yourself as if you owe the world something. But the truth is, the more you put yourself at the center of other people's stages, the further you drift from yourself. Being always available is a subtle form of self-abandonment. It's a hidden way of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. It's trying to control what others think of you. But this control has a price. Your peace, your vital energy, is distributed as if it's infinite, when in fact it's limited. Very limited. People who want you to be always available don't actually want you. They want what you provide. Validation, companionship, distraction, emotional relief. But when you change, when you set boundaries, when you refuse to react, those same people get angry. They blame you. They call you strange. It's not because you've changed. It's because you've stopped being functional for them. And here's the most brutal truth. The more available you are, the less value others place on you. Because what's abundant becomes worthless. It becomes an emotional rag. No one respects what they don't have to win. No one appreciates what's always there. So stop now and think. Who really deserves your time? Who deserves your attention? Who deserves your presence, your listening, or better yet, your absence? But before you answer that, we need to understand something fundamental. Why do we react so much? Why are we given so easily? What lies behind this almost automatic urge to react, to justify, to please? The answer lies in what Carl Jung called psychic energy. Jung didn't see the human psyche as an automatic machine that reacts to stimuli without consequences. Our mind is like an energy system, and every thought, every emotion, every action consumes part of that energy. The question is, are you choosing where your energy goes, or are you letting the world decide for you? Every time you react impulsively, every time you defend yourself against criticism you don't deserve, every time you respond to a provocation that doesn't deserve your attention, every time you enter useless arguments to prove you're right, every time you try to please people who don't care about you, you're wasting psychic energy. You're spending your inner strength on things that don't nourish you. Jung used to say, what you resist persists. The more you react, the more you bind yourself. People who live emotionally depleted aren't weak. They're misdirected. And do you know what happens to someone who lives exhausted? They become vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, you become easy prey for the manipulative, the opportunistic, and the emotionally needy. People can sense this. They notice that you don't know how to protect your energy, that you react to everything, that you're trying to fix the world, and they take advantage of it. Jung said that a healthy psyche is one that knows how to hold energy within the system. This means knowing how to say no without guilt, knowing how to remain silent without feeling cowardly, knowing how to observe before acting. Because real power doesn't lie in reacting. It lies in choosing when and how to move. And that's only possible when you know yourself well enough to recognize your own impulses. How many times have you lost sleep over an unresolved conversation or incident? How many times have you spent hours thinking about what you should have said or trying to understand why someone treated you badly? This is energy consumed without return. You're keeping ghosts alive that should have died long ago. You're feeding dynamics that only exist because you insist on reacting. When psychic energy is well protected, it's like a force field. It creates presence. You walk into a room and command respect without saying a word. But when it's poorly managed, you become invisible, reactive, fragile. And the world shows no mercy to those who give in easily. So start observing your own triggers. What is it that makes you automatically react? What causes you to lose your center? These are the exact points where your energy is leaking. And this is where you need to work, not to be cold or indifferent, but to be sovereign over yourself, to be selective. Here comes one of Jung's greatest revelations. When you protect your energy, you break the projections that others have placed on you. And this deeply disturbs them, because now we're entering that dark zone of silent manipulation. You think you're in control. You believe your reactions are conscious choices. But the truth is darker. Most of your emotional reactions are programmed, and those who understand this can easily manipulate you. Opportunistic people don't need to raise their voices, threaten, or force situations. They just trigger those buttons you've left exposed, and you react the way you always do. Carl Jung called this projection, the psychological mechanism where people reflect onto others what they can't see in themselves. But there's another side to this phenomenon that very few notice. While others project onto you, you simultaneously become a receiver of these images. And the more emotionally available you are, the more you become a blank canvas for these projections. You know them. That friend who only reaches out during a crisis. That partner who always needs you to save the day. That person who praises you, but only as long as you're useful to them. None of this is coincidence. It's not about you. It's about the role you've agreed to play, the idea of you. So why do you accept it? Because you're afraid of disappointing, of not being loved, of being abandoned. The most effective manipulation doesn't happen through shouting. It happens in the silence of guilt, when you feel you owe something to others, when you believe you must be ready, must help, must understand, even if it destroys you from within. Here's the real issue. The manipulator doesn't need to control you. They just need you to continue reacting the same way. But when you stop reacting, the game breaks. When you start saying no, when you respond with silence, when you withdraw instead of explaining yourself, the projections start to crumble. The mask they put on you falls, and this makes people uncomfortable because now they don't know who you are anymore. And worse, now they have to look at themselves. And not everyone is ready for that. Your unavailability is a threat because it forces others to face their own emptiness. The silence you offer brings out the inner noise they don't want to hear. And then comes the attack. Criticism, emotional drama. Not because you're wrong, but because you've stopped being a suitable mirror for them. Jung stated, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you withdraw, when you stop feeding the cycle, the shadow of others begins to emerge. And this is unbearable for those who have always used you as an escape route. So what about you? Are you ready to deal with the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, even attacked, in order to protect yourself? Are you ready to endure that silence that comes after the break? Because it's precisely in that silence that a new kind of power is born. The modern world is noisy. Everyone wants to be heard, to respond quickly, to win meaningless arguments, to prove their opinions even if it costs them their peace. But there's a power that very few know and even fewer master. The power of silence. Not the silence of passivity or cowardice. A conscious, strategic, ruthlessly clear silence. A silence that isn't absence, but an enhanced presence. Jung saw silence not as emptiness, but as fertile ground for inner transformation. When you stop reacting, you start observing. And by observing, you see patterns you never noticed before. Emotional repetitions, manipulation games, self-sabotage cycles. Silence allows for clarity, and clarity is dangerous for those who live to control you. Have you noticed how some people panic when you don't respond, when you don't explain yourself, when you simply disappear? It's not because they miss you. It's because your silence takes away their control over the narrative. When you speak, you're still in their game. But when you're silent, you change the rules. And this destabilizes everyone who feeds off your reaction. True silence isn't the absence of voice. It's mastery over your own energy. It's refusing to be pulled down by others' emotions. It's consciously choosing not to enter battles that aren't worth fighting. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires this distance. Because only in silence can you hear yourself without the world's interference. But don't be fooled. Silence has a price. It distances you from people who only valued you for the role you played. It makes you incomprehensible to those who only saw you through their own projections. It makes you appear cold, distant, arrogant. But all of this is the reaction of those who only cared about your utility, not your depth. And here's the painful truth. As you mature, you become more selective with your words because you understand that every sentence is an energetic investment and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence isn't withdrawal. It's sovereignty. It's the language of those who don't have to prove anything to anyone. Silence is uncomfortable because it forces the other person to be alone with their thoughts, with their own inner noise. And this discomfort reveals more than any argument you could make. You don't need to explain your absence. It explains itself. And those who feel threatened by it reveal how dependent they are on your imbalance to maintain their own control. But the most powerful silence isn't the one that disturbs others. It's the one that rebuilds you from within. The silence that connects you to something beyond external validation, to your own center that is free from others. It's in this inner space that you need to reconnect with your essence, to start reclaiming your vital energy. There's no benefit to understanding all of this intellectually if in practice you continue to say yes when you want to say no, if you continue to respond to messages that bother you, if you continue to participate in empty conversations and maintain relationships that only exist out of inertia. Awareness without action is just another form of self-deception. Real transformation begins when you definitively decide to be selective. And this requires emotional discipline. Conscious unavailability isn't about being cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It's not about refusing to be available to anyone at any time for any reason. It's about taking control of your own energy, your own time, your own peace. And this starts with small actions. Not responding immediately. Taking a breath before reacting. Walking away from an argument before being dragged into chaos. Turning off your phone without guilt. Saying not today, I'm not interested, I won't engage. But the most important part is this. You don't need to justify your absence or explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone except yourself. And for many people, this is unforgivable. Because when you refuse to explain yourself, you take away the other person's power to keep you within a certain emotional narrative, always as the helpful one, the understanding one, the available one. Carl Jung understood that every process of individuation passes through isolation, but not a depressive isolation, a sacred isolation, a time of inner withdrawal where you relearn to listen to your own voice without the world's interference, a time when you rebuild your identity not according to others' gaze, but according to your own center. Do you want a good thermometer for your evolution? Observe who distances themselves from you when you become more reserved. Observe who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. Observe who accuses you of changing when you finally start protecting yourself. These aren't signs that you're wrong. They're proof that you're starting to free yourself. Being unreachable is uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilty. You'll think you're being selfish. You'll hear that you're being harsh. But this is part of the deconstruction process. You've spent your life conditioned to put yourself second. It's natural that change creates discomfort, not just in you, but in everyone who benefited from your old version. Conscious unavailability is the foundation of self-determination. When you say no to the world, you're saying yes to yourself. When you withdraw from a toxic environment, you're reaffirming that your peace is more valuable than any fake connection. And when you stop explaining yourself, you start to be respected, even if by a small number of people. But not everyone is ready for this kind of presence, because your emotional absence will bring out wounds they don't want to face. It will reveal how dependent they are on your emotional chaos to feel in control. And this is precisely when the break comes. With the break comes pain, loneliness, alienation, the feeling that you're losing something even as you're actually freeing yourself. But what comes after that? What comes after walking away? What is born from silence? When you stop being available to everyone, something profound begins to happen. First comes silence, an uncomfortable silence that screams inside you, making you wonder if you did the right thing, if you were too harsh, if you lost people who loved you. But slowly, this silence transforms. It starts to cleanse, to calm, to heal. And then comes solitude, but not the solitude of absence. The solitude of full presence, of being with yourself, the solitude of the strong. The solitude of someone who no longer betrays themselves to keep others close. And in that inner space where chaos once was, clarity appears. Where anxiety once was, peace comes. Where neediness once was, a new kind of power emerges. The power of being whole within yourself. Carl Jung said that the individuation process of becoming who you truly are requires you to separate yourself from the collective, to shed the mask and walk alone for a while. And when you decide to become unreachable, that's exactly what you're doing. You're not running away from the world. You're returning to yourself. This is the point where you stop being reactive and become creative. You stop being shaped by conditions and start shaping your reality from within. People who are disturbed by your absence reveal that they never really wanted you. They only wanted the role you played. Now that you no longer fit that mold, they don't know what to do with you. And this frees you. You'll lose people, but you'll find yourself. You'll distance yourself from certain places, but you'll rediscover your essence. You'll be misunderstood, but you'll finally start to be respected. Because when you're no longer available for just anything, you become valuable, rare, unforgettable. And make no mistake, this is a rebirth, a new beginning. The beginning of a life where you're no longer available for emotional crumbs, mind games, emptiness disguised as love. Now you only accept what aligns with your truth, with your wholeness. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you is ready for this new path. A part of you has understood that being loved means nothing if you have to abandon yourself for it. And that true self-love begins when you choose yourself. So tell me now, are you ready to pay this price of being alone for a while, of being misunderstood, rejected, maybe even hated in the name of your inner freedom? If this message affected you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I choose my peace. Let's see how many people here are ready for this transition. And remember, keep taking that next step that matters far more than you think. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and comment your city below. I'll see you there.